All right, so today we're going deep on something that's pretty important, but most people don't even know about it. Test data management.
Yeah, it's kind of like the unsung hero of software development.
Exactly. And our experts here to help us break it down. Welcome. Ready to kind of demystify test data management.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people would be surprised how much it impacts their everyday lives.
I think you're right. So we're focusing on Mage Data today. They're making some serious waves in the TDM world.
Yeah, they're really interesting.
We've got some great sources for this deep dive, including a report from Bloor Research, and they've actually named Mage Data a champion, which is a pretty big deal. It puts them ahead of some huge names like IBM and Informatica. What makes them so special? What did Bloor see?
Well, Bloor really focused on how Mage Data is tackling these real-world problems. The tough stuff that other TDM solutions just haven't been able to figure out. And one of the big things is how they handle the need for realistic test data. Like, you can't just use actual customer data for testing. That's a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah,
Right?
huge security risks, legal issues. You can't just take people's information and play around with it.
Right, exactly. So Mage Data is all about creating this test data that's, it's as close to the real thing as possible, but without all those risks.
So it's like a simulation. Like if you were a surgeon, you wouldn't practice on a real patient. You'd use a dummy or something.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. Mage Data is all about creating those safe, realistic simulations. And one way they do that is through data subsetting.
Oh, tell me about that. I saw that in the report.
Yeah. So think about it. If you're testing a system that's designed to handle millions of transactions, you don't need to use all those millions of transactions for every test.
Makes sense. You don't need the whole haystack to know what a needle looks like.
Right. So Mage Data is really smart about pulling a smaller, very specific subset of data that still captures all the important characteristics of that massive data set. It's incredibly efficient.
It's pretty cool. But what about sensitive information? Like we're talking about data, and data privacy is a huge deal these days. How does Mage Data handle that?
Well, that's another area where they really excel. Their sensitive data discovery
Hmm.
is incredibly powerful. They've basically got this high-powered scanner that goes through your data and finds any sensitive information, like Social Security numbers, health records, financial data, all that stuff that needs extra protection.
So they find the crown jewels, the stuff that you really don't want getting into the wrong hands.
Exactly. And once they find it, they use data masking to protect it.
Data masking. Is that like encrypting it?
It's similar, but it's actually even cooler. They don't just scramble the data randomly. They do it in a way that preserves the relationships between different data elements. So even though the actual sensitive information is hidden, the overall structure of the data stays intact.
So you can still run tests and get meaningful results, but without putting any sensitive information at risk.
Right. It's incredibly clever and effective.
It's like they're not just hiding the data, they're disguising it, like putting a mask on it, but you can still tell it's a person underneath.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. And all of this is happening at a time when data privacy and security are more important than ever.
Okay, so we've talked about what they do, but why now? Why is Mage Data having this breakout moment right now?
I think it's a combination of things. First, we've got this global trend of increasingly strict data privacy regulations.
GDPR, CCPA, all that stuff. It's a lot for companies to keep track of.
It is. And Mage Data's commitment to compliance is a huge selling point for companies trying to navigate that complex landscape.
Makes sense. No one wants to get slapped with a multi-million-dollar fine for mishandling data.
Exactly. And second, big companies are finally starting to realize that using raw production data for testing is just way too risky.
It's like playing with fire.
Exactly. So they're looking for solutions that are both secure and effective. And that's exactly what Mage Data offers. They're like that perfect sweet spot.
They're offering peace of mind in a world that's increasingly anxious about data security.
Precisely. And third, we can't forget about the speed at which technology is evolving these days. Everything is about agility, and Mage Data gets that. Their solutions are designed to integrate seamlessly with all the popular automation tools the development teams are using.
So they're not just keeping up with the times, they're ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And all of this is reflected in their client roster, which is super impressive. I mean, they're working with everyone from Swiss banks, with their legendary privacy standards, to Fortune 10 companies dealing with massive amounts of data, to Ivy League universities protecting sensitive research and student information.
Wow, that's quite a range. They must be doing something right to be attracting such a diverse clientele.
They really are. And it's not just about the technology itself. It's also about the people behind it. Mage Data is led by a team of experts who've been in the data management game for, like, decades. They've seen it all and really understand the challenges companies are facing.
So they're not just a bunch of tech whizzes, they're seasoned veterans who've been in the trenches, so to speak.
Exactly. And they're using all that experience to create solutions that are not just innovative, but also practical.
Okay, so we've established that Mage Data is doing some pretty amazing things. But I'm curious about, why they're being seen as better than some of the old guard, the big established players in TDM. What's giving them the edge?
Well, one thing Bloor highlighted is that some of those big players like IBM and Informatica are actually kind of losing interest in TDM. They're shifting their focus to other areas.
So it's not just that Mage Data is doing well, it's that some of the giants are stepping back, leaving this open space for a new leader to emerge.
Right. And what's really cool is that Mage Data isn't just feeling a void. They're actively pushing the boundaries of what's possible in TDM.
Oh, okay. Now you've got me really intrigued. What kind of boundary pushing stuff are we talking about here?
Well, for one, they're integrating AI in some really innovative ways.
AI. Of course. Everyone's talking about AI these days.
I know, right? But Mage Data is actually using it to make TDM even smarter and more efficient. They're using AI to, like, intelligently select and generate test data. So instead of relying solely on human expertise to choose the right data, their system can actually learn from your data and automatically create test data sets that are highly relevant and accurate.
So it's like having a data scientist built into the TDM platform itself.
Exactly. It's a game changer. And to make things even more user-friendly, they've introduced a conversational user interface.
Oh, I've heard about those. You can just talk to the system like you're talking to a person, right?
Right, so you don't need to be a data expert to use Mage Data. You can just tell it what you need in plain English, and it will do the rest.
Wow, they're making TDM accessible to everyone. That's pretty amazing.
It is. And it's really important because as we rely more and more on software, the demand for TDM solutions is only going to increase.
Okay, this is all super fascinating, but before we go too much further, I want to kind of bring it back to our listener for a minute. Why should they care about all this? How does test data management actually impact their lives?
That's a great question. And I think the key takeaway here is that even though TDM might seem like a behind-the-scenes technical detail, it has a huge impact on the quality and security of the software we all use every day.
It's easy to take for granted that our apps just work, but there are a lot of people working hard behind the scenes to make sure that happens.
Exactly. And as we rely more and more on software for everything from banking to healthcare to communication, the importance of thorough and secure testing just can't be overstated.
So the next time you're using an app or a website, think about all the testing that went on behind the scenes to make sure it works properly and that your data is safe.
And who knows? Maybe Mage Data is playing a part in that behind-the-scenes magic. Because with their innovative solutions and their growing market presence, it's entirely possible that they're helping to shape the software landscape as we speak.
Well, they're not just solving problems that companies are facing today, They're really looking ahead, anticipating future challenges and building solutions that are ahead of the curve.
Give me an example. What kind of challenges?
Well, think about the cloud. More and more companies are moving their data and their applications to the cloud, right?
Yep. So they need TDM solutions that can work seamlessly in those cloud environments. And Mage Data, they're already there. They've got extensive support for all the major cloud platforms, like Snowflake, Salesforce, even Kafka.
So they're making sure that no matter where your data is, whether it's, on your own servers or up in the cloud, it can be properly tested and protected.
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
and they're not waiting for the cloud to fully take over. They're already there, making sure their solutions are, compatible and effective in these new environments.
That's smart. It's like they're building a bridge before the river even forms.
Yeah, I like that.
How is Mage Data addressing those security concerns?
Oh, cybersecurity is a top priority for them. I mean, they know that test environments need to be just as secure as production environments. You can't have any weak links in the chain.
Right, because if someone can get into your test environment and steal sensitive data, it doesn't really matter if your production environment is Fort Knox, right?
Exactly. So they've built their solutions with security in mind from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like having a security guard for your test data,
I like that. A data security guard.
keeping everything safe and sound.
And on top of all that, you mentioned earlier that they're incorporating AI into their processes. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so they're using AI to make data subsetting and test data generation even smarter. So instead of relying on humans to figure out what data to use for testing. Their algorithms can analyze your data and like choose the most relevant and representative subsets automatically.
Wow. So it's like having a data scientist built into the TDM platform itself.
Exactly. It streamlines the whole process.
Yeah.
Makes it more efficient, more accurate.
But the AI is taking care of all the heavy lifting.
Right. And they've also they've also incorporated a conversational user interface, which we talked about earlier.
Right, being able to just talk to the system.
Yeah, and that makes TDM much more accessible to people who aren't, data experts.
It's like they're democratizing TDM.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really important because as we discussed, the demand for TDM solutions is only going to increase.
Right. So we've covered a lot of ground here. It seems like Mage Data is, really at the forefront of the TDM landscape. They're not just keeping up with the times, they're setting the pace. But we're not done yet, are we? Or what's the future of test data management as a whole? Is this a space that's going to keep growing?
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. As software becomes even more complex, even more data-driven, the need for really robust TDM solutions is only going to increase.
So it sounds like Mage Data is in the right place at the right time with the right technology.
Yeah, they're definitely well positioned, especially as some of those bigger players are, shifting their focus away from TDM. There's a real opportunity there for Mage Data to kind of step up and become the leader.
But it's more than just being in the right place at the right time, right? They need to have the vision. They need to be able to adapt. This tech world is changing so fast.
You're absolutely right. And that's what's so impressive about Mage Data. They're not just, reacting to trends. They're anticipating them. They're investing in R&D. They're constantly innovating. And they're really listening to their customers.
So they're not just building a product, they're building a company. A company that can adapt, a company that's forward-thinking, a company that's really committed to excellence.
Exactly. And that's why, that's why I think they're a company to watch.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about what test data management is, why it's important, and why Mage Data is emerging as a leader in this space. And we talked about the future of TDM, all these trends that are shaping it. So what's the one big takeaway for our listeners? What should they remember from all of this?
I think the key message here is that test data management is not just some technical niche. It's a really crucial part of software development. And it impacts all of us, every single one of us. And as our world becomes, even more reliant on software, the role of TDM in making sure that software is high quality, that it's secure, that it's innovative, that role is only going to become more and more important.
So the next time you're, using an app or shopping online or even just checking the weather forecast, take a minute to appreciate the unsung heroes of test data management, the people who are working behind the scenes to make sure everything runs smoothly.
And, maybe, just maybe, Mage Data is part of that seamless experience that you're having, because with their innovative solutions and their forward-thinking approach, they're really helping to shape the future of software.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into test data management and the rise of Mage Data. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.